Hey there, hope you're having a wonderful day. In this video, we're going to be coding the game Doodle Jump. So for those of you who don't remember or don't know, this is one of the early games released on the iPhone in the App Store, and it's a very simple game. So what you see here is the final result of this tutorial. So currently I have game over, but if I press space, I can restart the game. And you can see we have a doodler, which is this little monster here. And the goal of the game is to hop on these platforms and see how far you can get without falling off. So you can see on the top left, we have a number keeping track of the score. And if I move to the left or to the right, I appear on the other side. And if I fall down, game over. I'll also show you how to reset the game by pressing space. So this game will be created using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with Canvas. So very quickly, before we begin coding, I just want to mention that I am working on a JavaScript game programming web dev tutorial series where I teach you how to make games using JavaScript. So you can see we have Doodle Jump, Breakout, Flappy Bird, Space Invaders, Wordle, Sudoku, 2048, Candy Crush, Snake, and many more games. So if this is something that you're interested in, please consider subscribing to this channel so that you don't miss out on future game programming tutorials. And you can also find the list of tutorials on my channel as well as kennyipcoding.com. Alright, so before we begin, make sure you click on the GitHub link down below in the video description and clone that repo. You want to get these images. So we have a background image here, and we have a doodler left and doodler right, and we have this green platform. We also have this broken platform, but I won't be including that. For now, I'm just going to use the green platform. You can continue working on the game if you want to add this broken platform. But yeah, just download the images and add them to your folder. So once you have those images in your folder, create 3 files, index.html, doodlejump.js, and doodlejump.css. Alright, let's start with the HTML file. So I'm going to do doctype HTML, create an HTML tag, create a head tag, meta charset is equal to UTF-8, meta name is equal to viewport, content is equal to width equals device width, initial scale is equal to 1.0. Now let's give a title to our web page. We're going to call this Doodle Jump. Let's also link our style sheet. So link rel is equal to style sheet. href is equal to doodlejump.css. And for our JavaScript, we're going to use a script tag. Source is equal to doodlejump.js. And this is all we need for our head tag. In our body tag, all we need is a canvas. We're going to give it an ID of board, so we can use JavaScript to access this canvas tag and update it. And that's all we need for our HTML. Alright, let's move on to our CSS file. I'm going to add a style for the body, and it's just going to be text align center. So this is going to align our canvas to the center of the page. And for the board, which is a reference to the canvas tag ID, I'm going to set background color, and we're going to make it green. Alright, now if we open up the index.html file, you can see we have our canvas tag centered, and it has a green background. Alright, now let's modify the canvas tag using JavaScript. So let's create some variables here. Let board. So this is going to be a variable that references that canvas tag with the ID board. Board width is going to be 360 pixels. Board height is going to be 576 pixels. and we're going to create a variable for context, which is going to be used for drawing on the canvas. So if you're wondering where I got these numbers from, these are the dimensions of our background image. So this is 360 pixels wide and 576 pixels tall. Alright, so when our page loads, I'm going to do window.onload and call a function. And I'm going to set board equal to document.getElementById board. So this right here is a reference to the canvas tag. So the ID is board. And over here you can see we set an ID of board to the canvas tag. Now I'm going to set board.height equal to board height and board.width equal to board width. And context is going to be board.getContext 2D. Alright, so now if I go back to our web page and I refresh, you can see our canvas has a width of 360 pixels and a height of 576 pixels. So what I'm going to do is go back to our CSS file and comment this out. We don't need this green color anymore because we have a background image. So I'm going to set the background image to url./doodle-jump-bg.png. Okay. So now if I refresh this page, you can see we are using our background image. And it is very important that you use these exact dimensions, otherwise the image will be stretched horizontally or vertically and it'll be very pixelated. So it is important that you use the correct dimensions for the image. Alright, so now that we have our canvas and background ready, let's create the doodler. So I'm going to need some variables for the doodler. So let's set a doodler width to 46 pixels and doodler height to 46 pixels as well. And we're going to give it an X and Y position. So doodler X is going to be board width divided by 2 minus doodler width divided by 2. And doodler Y is going to be board height times 7/8 minus doodler height. Let's also add two more variables to keep track of the images. So doodler right image and doodler left image. And then let's create an object for the doodler. So let doodler equal to an object. And I'm going to set image to null for now. X is going to be doodler X. Y is going to be doodler Y. Width is going to be doodler width. And height is going to be doodler height. So whenever we draw something on the canvas, we need to specify these four arguments. So if we're drawing a rectangle, we need to specify the X and Y coordinates on the canvas and the width of the rectangle and the height of the rectangle. And if we're using an image, we need to specify the image source. Alright, so now that we have these arguments, let's draw the doodler on the canvas. So first I'm going to change the color of the pen. So context.fillStyle, I'm going to set this to green. And then I'm going to do context.fillRect, doodler.x, doodler.y, doodler.width, and doodler.height. So to draw a rectangle on a canvas, you need to specify the x, y, width, and height. So the x and y refers to the coordinates on the canvas, so it can be anywhere. And we need to specify where to start drawing from. So x and y refers to the top left corner of the rectangle. For that reason, we set x to board width divided by 2 minus doodler width divided by 2. Because if I did board width divided by 2, this is 1/2 of the board, the doodler will be over here, and it is not going to be centered. So to center this, we need to move half of the doodler's body back For that reason, we do board width divided by 2 minus doodler width divided by 2. That way, the doodler will be somewhere over here. So the x-coordinate will be somewhere here, and the y-coordinate, we set it as board height times 7 over 8. So it should be over here. So this is where we'll draw the doodler. But we don't want the doodler to be this far down, so we're going to shift it up by the doodler height. So now it's over here. So this is where the doodler will be, somewhere around this region. Alright, now if I refresh my page, you can see this is where the doodler is going to be. But because we have the image, we don't need to use this green rectangle. So over here, let's load the images. So by default, I'm going to have the doodler face right. So doodler right image is going to be new image. Doodler right image dot source is going to be /doodler -right.png. And I'm going to set doodler.image. So doodler.image over here, we set it to null. I'm going to set this to doodler right image. And similar to how we wait for the page to load over here, window.onload, before we call this function, we need to make sure that the image loads before we assign it. So I'm going to do doodler right image dot onload is equal to a function. So as soon as the image loads, we are going to draw the rectangle. We're going to draw the image of the doodler. So context.drawImage. So it's going to be similar to fillRect, except we are going to pass in an extra parameter, which is the image. So doodler.image, doodler.x, doodler.y, doodler.width, and doodler.height. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see we've drawn the green rectangle as well as the doodler image. So we can get rid of this green background. So I'm just going to comment this out. Alright, so now this is what we have. So now that we have the doodler facing right, let's also load the left image. So doodler left image is going to be a new image object. And doodler left image.source, this is going to be /doodlerleft.png. Alright, so now that you know how to draw on the canvas, we need to create the game loop. So currently we are only drawing on the canvas one time, but when you're playing the game, if you move to the left or to the right, you are changing the XY coordinates, so you need to update the canvas by redrawing it. For that reason, we need a game loop. So down here, I'm going to call request animation frame, and it's going to call a function called update. Let's define that function here. And I'm going to do the same thing, request animation frame, update. So this right here is going to be our game loop. And I'm going to just take this and copy and paste it here. Okay, so we're going to draw the doodler over and over again. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see nothing is changing, but we are drawing the doodler over and over again. So to see a difference, we need to make the doodler move left and right. So let's add some key handlers for that. Alright, so in order to move the doodler left or right, we need to specify a velocity in the x direction. So over here, let's add the game physics. Let velocity x. I'm going to set this to 0. And then down here, I'm going to add an event listener, document.add event listener, and we're going to listen for a key down. Basically, whenever you press on a key, we're going to call a function called moveDoodler. So let's scroll down and define that here. So this function is going to take in an event, E, which is the key event. So if e.code is equal to arrow right, or e.code is equal to key D. So here we're moving right. I'm going to set velocity x to 4. And I'm also going to change the image of the doodler to doodler right image. Let's also do the same for moving left. So else if e.code is equal to arrow left, or e.code is equal to key A, I'm going to set velocity x to -4. And doodler.image is going to be doodler left image. So basically, by setting velocity to 4, we are moving in the positive direction, which is to the right, and -4 is going to be to the left. Because over here, we have 0, 0, and over here, we have 360, 0. So -4 this way, and +4 this way. So this means each frame in our game loop, we are moving the doodler 4 pixels to the right or 4 pixels to the left. Alright, now that we've set our velocity x to 4 going right and -4 going left, before we draw the doodler, we need to update its x value. So doodler.x plus equal velocity x. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see the doodler is not moving because initially velocity x is 0. But if I press the left arrow key, we can expect it to move to the left by 4 pixels per frame. And if I press the right arrow key, it will come back and go towards the right. Now we have an issue here, and that is our frames are overlapping. And that is because we need to clear the canvas every time we redraw something. Otherwise, the images will overlap. So over here, I'm going to do context.clearRect, and the range I want to clear is the entire canvas. So starting from 0, 0, the top left corner of the canvas, board.width, and board.height. So now in our game loop, before we draw the doodler's new position, we have to clear the previous frame. Alright, so now if I refresh the page and I move left, you can see we are moving the doodler back and forth using the left and right arrow keys. Now we have an issue, and that is we need to move the doodler so that it doesn't fall off the screen. So the solution is, if the doodler goes towards the left and falls off the screen, it will appear from the right. And if it falls off the right side of the screen, it will reappear from the left. So let's go and do that. So over here, I'm going to do if doodler.x is greater than board width, doodler.x is going to be 0. So board width is the right side of our canvas. So as soon as the x position, which is the top left of the doodler, as soon as that x position passes the right side of the canvas, we are going to set the doodler.x equal to 0. Else, if doodler.x plus doodler.width is less than 0, so in this case, 0 is the left side of the canvas, and doodler.x is the left side of the doodler. So we want to add the width of the doodler so that we can get its right side coordinate. So we want to make sure that the right side of the doodler falls off the left side of the canvas, in which case we will do doodler.x is equal to board width. Alright, so now if I refresh the page and I press arrow left, as soon as the right side of the doodler touches 0, which is the left side of the canvas, we will teleport the doodler to the right side. And we can do the same thing if I press arrow right. As soon as the left side of the doodler touches the board width, then it'll fall off. So we need to teleport the doodler onto the left side of the canvas. So now we have a doodler that can move left and right. So now what I'm going to do is focus on the doodler's movement vertically, which is jumping up and down. But to jump, we need to have some platforms. So let's go and create some platforms. So up here, I'm going to add some variables for the platforms. Since we're going to have multiple platforms, I'm going to need to create an array so that I can store all of those platform objects. So let's create a platform array. And I'm going to assign each platform a width of 60 pixels and a height of 18 pixels. Let's also create a variable for the platform image. So similarly, over here, I'm going to load another image. Platform image is going to be a new image object. And platform image.source is going to be /platform.png. And then down here, I'm going to add a function called place platforms. So this is going to place our initial platforms onto the canvas. So let's scroll all the way down here and define that function. So first thing I'm going to do is just clear the platform array and create some starting platforms. Later on, I'm going to show you how to randomly generate the starting platforms, but for now, I'm going to create them statically so that I can explain the game physics to you. So let platform equal to an object. Image is going to be platform image. X is going to be board width divided by 2. Y is going to be board height minus 50. Width is going to be platform width. And height is going to be platform height. And then what I'm going to do is take the platform array and push this platform object. Alright, so now that we have one platform in our array, let's go to our update code and draw that platform. So for let I equals 0, I less than platform array dot length I plus plus. Let platform equal to platform array of I. And I'm going to do context.drawImage platform.image, platform.x, platform.y, platform.width, and platform.height. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see we have one platform here. Let's go ahead and add another one. So I'm going to take this code and copy and paste it. And over here, I'm just going to get rid of that keyword and change this to 150. So it's going to be slightly above the previous one. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see we have two platforms. So this should be good enough. Now let's talk about the game physics. So like with moving horizontally, if we want to move vertically, which is up and down, we need a velocity y. So like with left and right, we have directions. So if we want to go up, this is towards 0, so this is negative. And if we want to go down towards the board height, which is 576, we need to make velocity y positive. Now with velocity x, all we did was every frame we moved to the right or to the left 4 pixels. But if I do the same for the doodler, for velocity y, it's going to continue to move upwards forever. But that is not how it works. We have something called gravity, which slows down velocity y. So let's say I make velocity y -6, because -6 means we're going upwards, and +6 would mean we're going downwards. So if I make velocity y -6, this means that every frame we're going up -6 pixels, and it'll keep going up forever. This is where gravity comes in. So let's set gravity to 2 for an example, and we apply gravity to the velocity. This means that the first frame we have -6, but if I apply gravity and add 2, the next frame it'll be -4, then -2, and then eventually 0, and then it'll be +2, which is the bottom down direction, +4, +6, and then +8, and so on. So this is how gravity works. So when we start the game, we are going to give the doodler an initial jump, and it's going to be some negative number. And as we go through the game loop, we need to apply gravity to the velocity y so that we can slow down the doodler and eventually make it fall back down. Alright, so back into our code, I'm going to add some more variables for the physics. So let's add a velocity y, and I'm going to set this to 0, and I'm going to set an initial velocity y. Let's set it to -8. So this is going to be our starting velocity y, and here is the doodler jump speed. And let's set a gravity of 0.4. So these are the numbers I've set, and after the tutorial, you can change the numbers to whatever you want. But for now, just stick with these numbers. And then let's scroll down. Over here, right before place platforms, I'm going to set velocity y equal to initial velocity y. And then in our update function, just like how we need to update the x position with the velocity x, we need to do the same thing with the y position. Oops, plus equal velocity y. Okay. So now if I refresh the page, you can see the doodler is flying. And because we did not apply gravity, the doodler is just going upwards in the negative direction forever. So right before we update the y position with the velocity, I'm going to update the velocity plus equal gravity. And you can apply this update after this line or before. In this case, I'm just going to do it before. But again, you can play with the numbers if you want later on. So let's just save and refresh the page. Alright, so now if I refresh this page, you can see the doodler jumps and then falls back down. Okay? So now that the doodler can jump, let's make it so that whenever it touches the platform, it will bounce off the platform. Alright, so down here, I'm going to define a new function called detect collision, which is going to detect the intersection between two rectangles, A and B. So I'm going to return a Boolean using a specific formula. So a.x is less than b.x plus b.width. a.x plus a.width is greater than b.x. a.y is less than b.y plus b.height. And finally, a.y plus a.height is greater than b.y. Alright, so this is our collision detection formula for detecting the intersection between two rectangles. Alright, so now that we have our formula, let's go ahead and apply it. So let's go up here. And within this for loop, I'm going to add a check. So if detect collision between doodler and platform, we're going to set velocity y equal to initial velocity y. So we're just going to jump off the platform. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see the doodler touches a platform and then jumps upwards. So now the doodler is on the second platform and is jumping up and down. So basically in our for loop, what we're doing is we're going through all the platforms and we're checking to see if they intersect with the doodler. And the doodler starts with an initial jump. So if it touches a platform, it's going to increase the velocity y, and then it can touch this second platform and jump up again. So this is not what we want because this is not a smooth transition for the physics. Instead, we only want it to jump up off a platform if it touches the top. So it'll jump up, and then as soon as it jumps down on a platform, it'll go back up. That way, we won't have the doodler going like this. Collide, go up, collide, go up again, and so on. So to do this check, we just need to make sure that when the doodler collides with the platform, we only set the velocity y to the initial velocity y if currently it is falling down. So falling downward is the positive direction, so we're just going to make it so that if velocity y is greater than or equal to 0, meaning it's either falling down or it's stopped moving, as soon as it touches that platform, it's going to gain some velocity y and jump up. And then it will jump down and then bounce off again. So over here, I'm going to detect the collision and make sure that velocity y is greater than or equal to 0. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see the doodler goes up and then comes down a bit before jumping off the top platform. So it's not going to just collide and fly up again. Alright, so now that we have the physics down, the doodler can jump off the platforms and keep going up. Let's generate some platforms. So in this place platforms function, I'm going to comment this out and this as well. And I'm going to keep this one because this is going to be our starting platform so that we can guarantee that whenever the game starts, the first platform, the doodler will be able to jump off of it. So down here, I'm going to create a for loop and add some randomized platforms. So let's add 6 more for let I equals 0, I less than 6, I plus plus. I'm going to get a random x position, set it to math.floor, math.random, times board width, times 3/4. So math.random is going to give a number between 0 and 1, and we're multiplying it by 3/4 of the board width. And we're taking this math.floor so that we can round it down to the nearest whole number. So this is going to be a random x position for each platform. And then I'm just going to take this, copy and paste this, and place it in here. And I'm going to replace x with random x. And then I'm going to set board height to minus 150. So it's going to be similar over here. But I want to subtract another number. So currently, minus 150 is just going to create the platforms right above the first one. So I want to add 75 times I minus 150. So what this does is this I is going to be from 0 to 6, not including 6. And it's going to create an additional space of 75 pixels between each platform. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see we have randomly placed platforms. And this is the first starting one that we can jump off of. And the distance between these two is 100 because this is minus 50 and this is minus 150. And then each platform after that is minus 75. And I can keep refreshing and you can see we have 6 randomly generated platforms. So now if I make the doodler jump, you can see it's jumping on these platforms. And what we need to do is make these platforms come down so that we can add new platforms. Alright, so down here, I'm going to create a new function called new platform. And I'm just going to copy and paste this, put that in here, and then over here, I'm going to make this Y position, instead of making it 0, which is the top of the canvas, I'm going to make it negative platform height. So now we are going to generate a new platform and make it just above the canvas so that when we slide the platforms down, this new platform is going to be visible. Now the question is, when are we going to call this function? And that is, when we slide our platforms downwards, as soon as one platform falls off the bottom of the canvas, we want to create a new platform to replace that one that has just disappeared. Now the question is, how do we slide the platforms downwards? So when playing this game, I'm going to decide that as soon as the doodler is above this height, which is 3/4 of the board, I'm going to make each platform slide downwards. And as soon as this first one slides down past the height of the board, meaning it is no longer visible, I'm going to generate a new one up here. So this is 0. So to start from the top left, I want this Y position to be negative of the platform height so that it is right above this top part of the canvas. And it's going to be hidden over here with a random X coordinate as well. And if I jump up and down again and I pass this height, then I'm going to slide this one down as well, along with the rest of the platforms. So within this for loop where we draw the platforms, I'm going to add an additional check. If velocity Y is less than 0, this means we are falling down, and doodler.y is less than board height times 3/4. So this means that the doodler Y is above that 3/4 height. So just remember, going up is negative and going down is positive. So if the Y position of the doodler is less than this 3/4 point and the doodler is falling down, then all the platforms are also going to fall down with it. So I'm going to do platform.y minus equal initial velocity y. So this is slide platform down. So now if I refresh the page, you can see as soon as we jump, all the platforms are sliding down. Over here, I'm not at the 3/4 point, but if I jump on this one, you can see the platforms will go down. So just to show you again, okay. So now what we need to do is make new platforms to compensate for the ones that have fallen off the screen. So down here, under this for loop, I'm going to create a while loop. And I'm going to do while platform array dot length is greater than 0. This means that the array has a platform in it, and platform array of 0, which is the first platform in the array, if the Y position is greater than board height, that means it has fallen off the canvas. So since it has fallen off the canvas, we do not need this platform anymore. So I'm going to do platform array dot shift. So this removes first element from the array. And then I'm going to call new platform. So this will replace that platform that we just got rid of. Alright, so now if I refresh the page, you can see we are jumping on the platforms, and each time new platforms are spawning from the top. Okay. Alright, so now that we have our platforms and we are creating new ones each time, we have a functional game of Doodle Jump. Now we need to keep track of the score. And actually, let me copy and paste this. So I'm going to move this and bring it back up here. Okay, so now let's add a section for the score. So let's score. I'm going to set it to 0. And then I'm going to scroll down into our update function. Over here, I'm going to update the score. So let's create a function called update score. And I'm going to do context.fill style and set it to black. Context.font is going to be 16 pixels sans serif. And then I'm going to do context.fill text score, and I'm going to set the X position to 5 and Y position to 20. Alright, so now let's define this update score function. So here I'm just going to do points is equal to math.floor 50 times math.random. So again, math.random gives you a number between 0 and 1, and we're multiplying this by 50, so you can get a random number between 0 to 50, but it doesn't include 50. And because random is a decimal number, because it is between 0 and 1, we need to take the floor of that number so we can get rid of the decimal point. And here I'm just going to do score plus equal points. Alright, now if I refresh the page, you can see our score is going up. And the problem here is our doodler is actually not playing the game properly. You're only supposed to get your score as you progress upwards. But here you can see our doodler is jumping up and down on this platform and the score is just going up. So we need to make a check for this. So currently we have a score and it starts at 0 and we add points to that score over time. The issue is we should only be adding points to the score if we are going upwards. So going upwards means negative. So if the velocity y is less than 0, meaning it's negative, we want to increase the points. So you should only get points for jumping up. However, that doesn't resolve the issue because I can just jump up on the same platform and jump back down and jump back up and jump back down forever. So while I'm not getting points for going down, I am still getting points for going up. So what I need to do is I need another variable called max score. So now, if velocity is less than 0, we are going to set our max score and add some points. And if our score is less than this max score, I'm going to set score to this max score. Otherwise, if we're going down, I'm going to take max score and deduct some points. So when I go up, I gain points, but if I go back down, I lose points. But I'm not going to update score, I'm going to update this temporary max score. So for instance, if I manage to make it up here, I should get the points up until now. And if I fall down, my score should not change, but my temporary score will handle the calculation to see how many points to deduct. So that when I go back up here, I will have more or less roughly the same amount of points. And the reason why I say more or less is because our points is a random number between 0 and 50. Alright, so instead of directly adding some points over time, I'm going to create a variable to keep track of a temporary score. So let's scroll all the way up here, and I'm going to add let max score equals 0. Alright, let's get rid of this. Now I'm going to add some conditional statements. So if velocity y is less than 0, meaning it's negative, so it's going up, then I'm going to take max score and add some points to it. if score is less than max score, I'm going to set score to that value. Otherwise, if velocity y is greater than or equal to 0, I'm going to deduct the max score. Alright, so if I go up, my temporary score goes up, and if that temporary score is higher than the current score, then I'm updating that current score. Otherwise, if I'm falling downwards, I'm going to deduct from the temporary score. So if I go back up again, the temporary score increases in points, but I don't necessarily increase my actual score. Alright, so if I refresh the page, you can see I'm not gaining any points unless I continue to go up. So if I go back down, max score goes down. So you can see I'm not getting any more points just by heading downwards. But if I refresh the page again, just to show you one more time, you can see I only gain points as I go up. But if I fall back down, my points don't change until I go up again. Okay? So this is how we control the score for the player so that it only counts when you go up. Alright, so we're almost done. Now what we need to do is add game over and reset game. So game over happens when the doodler falls below the canvas. So this is board height. Alright, so for game over, let's add a variable over here. And I'm going to call it game over and set it to false. So if game over, we want to stop updating the canvas. So if game over, I'm going to set this to return so that we don't update the canvas. So when is game over? We get game over if the doodler falls down below the canvas height. So if doodler.y is greater than board.height, I'm going to set game over to true. And then down here, let's add a game over message. So if game over context.fill text game over, press space to restart. And we're going to set it at board width divided by 7 for the x coordinate and board height times 7 over 8 for the y coordinate. Alright, now if I refresh the page, you can see I'm going to play the game for a bit, and then if I fall down, we get game over. Press space to restart. Okay, so now let's honor this and add a click handler so that if we press the space key, we're going to restart the game. So in here, I'm going to add else if e.code is equal to space and game over. So if this is the case, I'm going to reset the game. And resetting the game is very simple. So to reset the game, all you need to do is place the game back into its starting condition. So let's start with the doodler. I'm going to go up here and just copy and paste this and put it down here. And then this image, I'm just going to make it doodler right image. So it's going to go back to its initial x and y position. I'm going to set the velocity x back to 0. And I'm going to give the doodler an initial jump for the new game. We need to set the score back to 0, the max score back to 0, and set game over back to false, and then call place platforms. So within our place platforms function, we are going to create new platforms for the new game. And within the function, we are going to clear the array, so assign it to a new array. That way we are clearing all the platforms from the previous game. And then we are going to randomly create new platforms for this game. And it seems I have a typo over here, so let's just change this to game over with a capital O. Okay. Alright, so now if I refresh the page and I play the game, game over. Now if I press space to restart, I expect the score to be 0 and all these platforms should disappear and I should get new platforms, and our doodler should appear in the center with an initial velocity y so that it has an initial jump. So I press space, you can see we reset the game. And then if I press space again, we can play the game again. Okay. Alright, so that's it for this tutorial. We have a fully functional game of Doodle Jump. And if you found this tutorial helpful, please give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe, and if you have any questions, please let me know down below in the comments section. And you can continue working on this game if you want. For instance, we have this platform broken image, which you can add to your game. You can also look online to see if there are monster sprites. We have the detect collision function. So all you need to do is detect collisions between the doodler and a monster. You can also play around with the numbers for the score or the physics to see how fast you can jump. But this is all up to you. So yeah, I encourage you to continue working on the project, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye.